This is Musings of the Shy podcast. I'm your host, Roja Shy.
This is episode 147. How many licks does it take to get to the six? This is another part of our ongoing series about the Bitcoin block size debate. This is a mini series in which, as we're wrapping up all the information concerning the block size debate, all the downsides, part one.
So this episode, we're going to deal with a little bit of the downsides of it if you happen to raise the block size, why people are against it. Just the subject of the block size, raising the block size in itself, because we have 4 different proposals out there. We have Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Unlimited, and then SegWit 2x, which all deal with raising the block size. In general, this week, what we're going to be doing is just covering all the downsides of the various proposals. Raising the block size separate in itself, dealing with Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin Unlimited, Bitcoin XT, why that didn't go through, the 2 different SegWits, user-activated SegWit and SegWit 2x, what the downsides are with this. And then, since there's been some changes, because this is Bitcoin, this is cryptocurrencies, there's always these changes, we'll try to talk about Bitcoin ABC, this hard fork situation, we'll talk about that. I originally planned talking about the hard fork in itself because it was really going to be against SegWit 2x and the user-activated soft fork. That was like a kind of a doomsday scenario. But now we have this other thing, this Bitcoin ABC out there, and there's even this other proposal. Plus, there is miners are now signaling BIP91, which we talked about, which is one of the versions of SegWit. They're signaling that and trying to get that locked in, and it only has to be locked in at the 80% hash rate. But it's dipping, going back and forth between 81 and 79, 78, going back and forth. So there's still a possibility that is not even going to lock in. SegWit itself, which is supposed to be BIP141, is not going to lock in. So August 1st, this last week and a half of July, pretty much from July, I believe it's July 27th all the way to August 5th, is, you probably don't want to be on the Bitcoin network. We're going to see what is really going to happen. And the price is fluctuating a little bit widely about these different, proposals, if you will. Again, we'll see what's going to go on. But this week, we're just going to talk about the downsides of these proposals, why they weren't activated, why they're still having issues.
The news. We're going to do a follow-up episode on this. This is still kind of ongoing, but this is from Brave New Coin. Metropolis pleads innocent to Mosman in the Mt. Gox case. This is by Luke Parker. So over 3 years ago, after the failure and bankruptcy of the infamous Bitcoin exchange Mt. Gox, the first trial of its CEO, Mark Metropolis, took place at the Tokyo District Court on Tuesday, July 11th. Through an interpreter, Metropolis pled not guilty to data manipulation and embezzlement, a total of 341 million yen in customers' money between September and December 2013, reported the Japanese newspaper Mashina. Mark Metropolis' statements, "I swear to God, I'm not guilty." During the collapse of the first successful Bitcoin exchange in February 2014, it was found that Mt. Gox had lost 850,000 Bitcoin, worth nearly $500 million at the time, and worth well over $1 billion today. From his bank account in Tokyo, another 27.4 million worth of yen was missing too, according to The Wire. The following month, however, Metropolis found an offline wallet that contained 200,000 Bitcoin, which was immediately turned over to law enforcement and remains in the Mt. Gox estate for customer restitution. So, this is very important because that means there's 650,000 Bitcoin out there, and people have been trying to track down this Bitcoin. There's a couple of wallets that are tagged. There are a possibility of being the Mt. Gox Bitcoin funds, if you will. But even through that, they were only able to maybe go through the blockchain network and find 400,000 Bitcoin, which leaves you with roughly 200,000 Bitcoin out there that are unaccounted for. But even still, with only 200,000 Bitcoin within the custody of the state of Japan and its creditors trying to fix the whole Mt. Gox situation, there's still 650,000 Bitcoin in general unaccounted for, and that's a significant amount of it. Now, no doubt some of that Bitcoin has gone onto the marketplace, but a majority of it seems has not, at least from all indications that it has not. And what does that mean for the community? There's 600,000 Bitcoin that's not out there in circulation, or may never come out into circulation. What could it do to the price? And what does it mean for the individuals who had lost Bitcoin and funds because of the the collapse. There's also a Silk Road tie-in where maybe some of that Bitcoin might actually have been Silk Road Bitcoin, because they did use Mt. Gox as an exchange for monetary reasons, for them to exchange out their Bitcoin for money, for fiat, if you will. And Variety Jones, whom we haven't heard of from since, I would say, January/February of this year, who is in Thailand waiting to be extradited back into the U.S., has alluded to the fact that he has at least access to a significant amount, allegedly up to 400k Bitcoin. So it could be the same amount of Bitcoin that's both the Silk Road one, which is also accounted for, there's 400k, and the Silk Road Bitcoin and the Mt. Gox Bitcoin could be one and the same, or they could be two separate batches. But there's still a lot of Bitcoin out there that somebody or a group of individuals has access to. As the price of Bitcoin has increased this year, surpassing US $2,000 each, the 200,000 Bitcoin are now worth more than enough to pay back customers who lost their funds. Mt. Gox, in effect, is Sullivan again. Unfortunately, a previous lawsuit between Mt. Gox and a US-based coin lab has prevented customers from receiving their share of funds. Yeah, that coin, we're going to talk about the Mt. Gox coin lab case. There has been some progress on it, but the lawsuit in itself is just a bunch of bullshit, if you will. The charges against the France-born ex-CEO was read out in court through an interpreter. And now much thinner, Kornyshev responded with a prepared statement translated to Japanese that was presented to the three-judge panel hearing his case. Kornyshev maintains his innocence and denies any wrongdoing. There was an initial presentation of evidence which took place approximately 2 hours to deliver, and according to Colin Burgess, a Mt. Gox creditor who runs the Mt. Gox protest website, and attended the Tuesday sessions, super tight security, and a small courtroom. Few people got it, he tweeted. In the afternoon session, the Mt. Gox transactions detailed the company history were presented. And after discussing the hacked exchange, Kornyshev admitted that the Willy bot, now called an obligation exchange, according to Burgess. WillyBot was one of the pair of programs that are suspected of making fake trades on the exchange in an effort to artificially increase the trading volume, and help drive up the price of Bitcoin during 2013. Although Kornyshev has said in the past that WillyBot existed, Tuesday's admission was the first time he took credit for running the bot himself. Kornyshev claims that running the bot was for the good of the company and was not illegal. I never manipulated data illegally or legally used the money of the customers, Kornyshev was translated by the HQ News. Being the first Bitcoin exchange to ever grow large enough to make use of such a program, there were no rules or regulations in place against running one on a cryptocurrency exchange. The first such regulation came in January of this year when the People's Bank of China began aggressively restricting and inflating Bitcoin exchange volumes at exchanges in the country. Of the missing 27.4 million worth of yen from Mt. Gox, Kornyshev made the case that the majority of it never existed, and according to Nelke, money had been sent back and forth between accounts to inflate the balance for the sake of this trading bot system. However, a single transfer of 340 million yen, currently worth 3 million, was sent to an external account towards the end of 2013, according to the incident. And the Mt. Gox bank account that sent it also managed customer funds, raising suspicion. While the Defense Council disputes the payment transfer, they have claimed that making the transfer would not equate to embezzlement. And according to Kornysev's statement, the money was sent for the repayment of business loan and was not made from customers' funds. And according to Maxim, Kornyshev insists that what the prosecutors alleged was data manipulation was part of his company's regular business operation, and that the money he spent was not his clients'. The prosecution stated during the opening statement, according to Burgess, the employees of Mt. Gox expressed concern about not dividing client funds and business income. The bad practice went unheeded as Mt. Gox continued to manage the company's assets and deposits from customers in the same account. I'm innocent. The main cause of the bankruptcy is due to hacking. Kornyshev. The cause of the Mt. Gox collapse is pure theft by external hacking, Kornyshev said in a statement. He insists that the investigation is being carried out in a complete irrelevant place, referring to himself, and that the police should be out looking for the real culprit. That's such an OJ thing to say. His statement did, however, indicate that the proper investigations are underway. Thanks to the hands of a handful of excellent engineers around the world, Kornyshev announced to the court the main cause of the failure of Mt. Gox has been elucidated. He went on to describe the transparency of the Bitcoin's blockchain and mentioned that by employing Bitcoin blockchain forensics, you can find out the fraud to some extent. However, he feels he still has to defend himself in trial and would like to prove more innocent, he announced. Metropolis also apologized to the now defunct exchange stakeholders, telling the court that he's responsible for retrieving the stolen funds in his role as exchange manager. However, that it was impossible to prevent the failure of Mt. Gox, he claimed. The trial is ongoing, and the judgment is expected to be handed over the next year, according to Nikki. So, yeah, we'll do an update on this about all the players, what's going on, the lawsuits, and the tracking of these funds, and what people are saying, in particular about the admission about WillyBot. Thieves drained two-factor authentication of protected bank accounts by abusing the SS7 routing protocol. The same weakness could be used to eavesdrop on calls and track locations. By Dan Gooden at Ars Technica. This is a problem just in general for information, but in particular for those who carry hot wallets on their phones. People have had their SIM cards duplicated and workarounds done to where they've lost a significant amount of funds because of this. A known security hole in the network protocol used by cell phone providers around the world played a key role in the recent string of attacks that drained bank customer accounts, according to a report published Wednesday. The identified hacker exploited weaknesses in the signaling system number 7, a telephone signaling language that more than 800 telecommunication companies around the world use to ensure the network interoperate. The SS7, as a protocol is known, makes it possible for a person in one country to send text messages to someone in another country. It also allows phone calls to go uninterrupted when the caller is traveling on a train. The same functionality can be used to eavesdrop on conversations, track geographic whereabouts, or intercept text messages. Security researchers demonstrated this dark side of the SS7 last year when they stalked U.S. Representative Ted Lieu using nothing more than his 10-digit cell phone number and access to the SS7 network. In January, thieves exploited the SS7 weakness by bypassing two-factor authenticating banks used to prevent unauthorized withdrawals from online accounts. The German-based newspaper Süddeutsche reported. Specifically, the attackers used SS7 to redirect the text messages the banks used to send one-time passwords. Instead of being delivered to the phones of the designated account holder, the text messages were diverted to numbers controlled by the attacker. The attackers then used the MTANs, short for mobile transaction authentication numbers, to transfer money on the accounts. The interception of the MTANs came only after attackers had compromised bank accounts using traditional bank fraud Trojans. These Trojans affected account holders' computers and steal the passwords used to log into the bank accounts. From there, attackers could view available balances, but they were prevented from making transfers without the one-time password that the bank sent as a text message. In the past, attackers obtained MTANs by obtaining a duplicate SIM card that allows them to take control of the bank customer's phone number. SS7 facilitated compromise. By contrast, can be done remotely on a much larger quantity of phone numbers. So yeah, there's more to the article, but just as a community, we're going to eventually have to come to a point where the current security systems like two-factor authentication and things of that nature might not be sufficient enough. Even the use of hardware wallets, some of them have that 2FA built into them, that perhaps we need to seek something unique or different in order to protect one's funds. This is from Quartz. The guy who photobombed Janet Yellen was a buy Bitcoin sign and received nearly $16,000 in donations. The mysterious man photobombed the U.S. Federal Reserve Chair, Janet Yellen, earlier this week, surreptitiously holding up a legal pad that read buy Bitcoin from his seat a few rows behind the central bank chief as she was testifying to Congress. This was written by Ian Wong. I believe the actual incident occurred like July 12th. So, yeah, July 12th, and Janet Yellen was testifying about the Fed auditing, or the federal government seeking to audit the Fed. And this guy was just, he was behind. I'm pretty sure you've seen the video. There's even a gift about it. He was just behind her, and he just held up a made-up sign and just, boom, buy Bitcoin during the testimony. The man who remains anonymous quickly won praise from the Bitcoin community. This is widely published by all financial magazines and institutions and still kind of talked about even now, almost a week afterwards. The photobomb duly Christian Bitcoin sign guy for cryptocurrency enthusiasts. Someone who said he's a friend of the Bitcoin sign guy tweeted an address for Bitcoiners to send donations. After some initial skepticism that could be a scam, a photo of the Bitcoin sign guy himself holding up the now famous legal pad with the same Bitcoin address scribbled on it appeared. Within 4 hours, the Bitcoin guy received $10,000 in donations. Most were from tiny fractions of Bitcoin, although 3 transactions were for 1 Bitcoin apiece. roughly nearly 2,400 at the current prices, probably from generous whales. The balance, which is in real time here, continues to climb, reaching nearly 16,000 at the time of writing. The Bitcoin sign guy is fitting hero for Bitcoiners. He hijacked the spotlight from the world's most powerful central banker to promote a stateless cryptocurrency and quickly turned a tidy profit for his audacity. So yeah, very ballsy, very fascinating experience. It looks like thus far he's received 6.97 and some more in Bitcoin, which he's transferred out with a total of 738 transactions. Even as of this recording, he's still receiving transactions to this account. Yeah, so it's just pretty amazing, the whole thing in and of itself. And wow, so that happened in the Bitcoin community, something a little bit positive, if you will. So that is it for the news. On to our discussion about the main episode about the downsize of keeping the block size, or I should say keeping the block size, but the downside of raising the block size up.
So as we spoke at the introduction, there has been some swift changes to the scaling debate, in particular with this Bitcoin ABC, which is this, and we'll talk about it when we talk about Bitmain and SegWit when it comes to they may fork on their own, and this is something they've threatened before with the user-activated hard fork, that they would fork on their own, do some private mining, and then release those blocks onto the network, and fork and create their own economic chain, if you will, or their own Bitcoin. And then there's the BIP91 signaling that people are doing, which we'll get into as we spoke about. That was one of the versions of SegWit that's out there that has a lower confirmation threshold, which is at 80% instead of BIP1, which is 95% of the hashing power. So there's been some significant changes as we're getting closer and closer. This is recorded on July 18th, as we're getting closer to D-Day, if you will, where things are going to start locking in, and we're either going to have SegWit 2x going on, we're going to have BIP 141, we're going to have the user-activated soft hard fork, which is August 1st. So things are getting down to crunch time. Throughout these week of episodes, you can always click onto the SegWit countdown and see the countdown clock, and any other relevant data aggregates I can find, I'll add into the episodes as we go along, like any visualization that will break down what is occurring. Basically, as we're getting crunched down, people are just kind of either they're stepping away, backing down, shifting their positions, or getting really worried. And Andreas Antonopoulos pretty much has stated that this is a game of chicken, where people have taken the steering wheel off of their cars and demonstrating that kind of a stubbornness or willingness of their position. And there's a great analogy in the sense that you would win the game of chicken if anyone were to ever go up against you. But the thing is, that person that has that steering wheel off their car when it comes to the game of chicken, are they going to actually put their foot on the gas pedal? Because what if someone does line up against them and decides, yeah, I'm still going to go against you because I'm betting on the fact that you're not going to actually move. You're not going to actually go. You're going to be so afraid of putting that gas on because you have no control of the steering wheel that you're actually not going to move, and thus I'm going to win the game of chicken, if you will. So there's a lot of stuff going on within the space. But right here for this episode of all the downsides, we're just going to talk about the downsides of staying the same and keeping things small blocks, if you will, and as well as raising the blocks. What the downsides are about it this week. But for this particular episode, when we're talking about block size increase, we're going to talk about the arguments against the block size increase. What the downsides are if you were to increase the block size. But before we get into that, I just wanted to read this particular article, which I found very interesting, which is about the human impact of the scaling debate. It's from Cointelegraph. It's by Joel Venezuela. I think I said his name correct. The human impact of Bitcoin scaling debate. This is published last year, December 19, 2016, but I still think it's very relevant to what's going on. So Bitcoin's 1 megabyte block size limit and the scaling issues that come with it have a long caused a deep divide within the community, which is very true. Some of the community has supported an unchanged block size, which while waiting for a release of segregated witness, while others have attempted to fork Bitcoin to increase the block size. This is where we get the Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin Unlimited, Bitcoin XT. In the meantime, transactions have become increasingly slow and expensive as the network becomes increasingly overloaded. Unfortunately, there's a human cost to these delays. Now, there is some stuff behind that. We'll read about it a little bit. I think there needs to be more data aggregation, if you will, about this concept of a Moby Dick where someone's intentionally spamming the network, which is something that people have stated a long time ago about spamming the network, causing all these transactions to fill up the blocks, whether it's miners or whalers or anyone trying to put pressure on to get the either SegWit activated or the Bitcoin block size raised to kind of manipulate the network, if you will, by spamming it and causing all this kerfuffle. But at the same time, there is this concept of what is spam? Really, what is spam? If you're paying the transaction fee, is it spam? And we might touch on that again a little bit, but for now, we're just going to continue reading this article. Bitcoin's confirmation time keeps climbing. As the user base has grown, Bitcoin's transaction volumes exceed current network capacity, causing a delay in transactions. The current 1 megabyte limit of blocks frequently shows blocks at capacity, and the mean pool of backlog transactions continue to grow, peaking at over 48 million unconfirmed transactions during a spam attack in November. The median confirmation time continues to rise and currently rests at about 15 minutes per transaction. However, in March, when confirmation times were shorter, Reddit user Soko compiled the average rather than the mean transaction time and came up with a much higher figure of 43 minutes. Bill McGongle from New Hampshire, the owner of Bitcoin accepted business Kids Suites LLC, has run into delays in online shopping. Nothing so dramatic, but using online have had to keep an eye on transactions far more than an hour to take the next step and check out or whatever. Check it, nope, get distracted, come back later, check it, nope, go do something else, check it, finally I can finish checkout. I hope the card hasn't expired. Not a huge pain, but if I want to buy with BTC, I have to plan to be at the same computer for the next 2 hours, compared with PayPal where I can buy something 5 minutes before I come out the door. Though the annoyance of having to wait around before a transaction confirmed is real, McGongle says a greater threat is crippling Bitcoin's daily utility. As someone's trying to make Bitcoin practically unusable, they're doing a great job. The delay in transaction is usually apparent for users of other cryptocurrencies have not faced similar scaling challenges. Ethereum is facing that right now. Royal Boer, a co-founder of Nox from the Netherlands, noticed that the slow speed of Bitcoin when it was exchanged for Golden through the service. We had someone that purchased 6 BTC worth of Golden through us with Nox, and he initiated the purchase on Saturday, and Bitcoin confirmation came in late in May. Fees are rising and becoming less competitive against card processors. As blocks become overloaded, Bitcoin transaction fees must increase in order for priority transfers to go through on time. As such, fees have become risen over the past several years, cutting into one of the main competitive advantages over a traditional financial transaction. And according to data compiled by BitcoinFees21.co, the average fee for transaction to be included within the next 6 blocks, possibly over an hour's time, is about 14 cents, with the average for the next 3 blocks and next blocks approximately 16 cents. For reference, the point of sale Squares charges 2.75% for swiping a card transaction for a $3 cup of coffee. That will amount up to 0.075, so 7 cents, 7.5 cents. A Bitcoin transaction would cost double and take possibly an hour or more to confirm, compared to the card processor's instant transaction. For large transactions, Bitcoin still remains more efficient than traditional wealth transfer methods, but for everyday use, it's begun to lose the game. For Cole Sawyers from New Hampshire, the fees required for an efficient transaction end up being noticeable. I had to pay such a high fee for a meal that Bitcoin fees are like 1.8% sales tax. Bitcoin network users' issues are seriously impacted everyday usability. Beyond a simple annoyance, the significant delays of confirmation time can have serious implications for day-to-day business. Major companies and services require at least one confirmation before processing orders in order to protect against double spends and transactions with insufficient fees to be confirmed. This can result in transactions taking hours, even days to complete, making some transactions unattainable. Malcolm McLeod from South Africa had a slow Bitcoin transaction cost him savings. I missed out on so special I wanted to buy it on a take lot at some point early last year because the Bitcoin transaction took a day to confirm. By the time the Bitcoin cleared, the item was no longer on sale. These days, more commonly affect in-person transactions. Many Bitcoin enthusiasts employ gift card services such as gift to be able to use your coins at an establishment that may not directly accept them. And since gift requires at least one confirmation before processing a gift card, this can mean a very awkward shopping experience. And Forrest from New Hampshire experienced this firsthand. About 6 weeks ago, I tried to use gift at 2 stores in a single 3-hour period and waited 45 additional minutes to check out in the second store before giving up. This happened because gift needed one confirmation on the second transaction. It was using unconfirmed change from the first transaction. And I thought they surely would get one confirmation in the next 2-3 hours after the first transaction. After all, we used the recommended transaction fee in Mycelium. And I can't imagine how frustrated someone would be if they were just casually trying out Bitcoin/gift and had no idea how the confirmation worked or how the recommended fee can now be jacked up way up after your transaction is already submitted. It was a very sad and infuriating experience to see firsthand that Blockstream has successfully destroyed, for the short term anyway, what used to be a smooth, fast, and easy user experience. Josh Nunn from Massachusetts had a similar embarrassing experience at a restaurant. Yeah, I had an issue. The lady at Chipotle felt bad for me and gave me the burrito. I had no cash. Went back to pay the next day once the damn gift card went through. Bad user experience may drive Bitcoin users to other cryptocurrencies. The final result from more Bitcoin performance is that users have been driven to abandon it altogether in favor of other digital currencies. Amanda B. Johnson, the web show host and former Bitcoin enthusiast, now hosts Dash exclusively and promotes the cryptocurrency via her web show Dash Detailed after being disillusioned with Bitcoin over delayed online purchases. The first time Bitcoin network congestions and fee chaos affected me was when I placed a purse.io order earlier this year. I was using a popular Bitcoin mobile wallet and I figured that recommended fee would be sufficient. Nearly 24 hours later, I was still waiting for a confirmation, meaning no Amazon order had been placed, and that's not the future of money. So yeah, you have this frustration from people that are already utilizing it. You're having people getting kind of a bit turned off or turned away from daily usage from new users or noobs, if you will. Not everyone wants a settlement layer. They're not looking to do transactions with bonds, if you will. They're looking to do daily interactions with the internet of money. And Bitcoin doesn't seem at this point in time to be able to do that, have that usability as well. At the same time, with the August 1st date approaching, with people talking about SegWit, SegWit 2X, all this back and forth and confusion, if you will, hostility, people getting very frustrated, you're turning some people off. And people are slightly getting scared. That's why there's a bit of a dip. And then as soon as BIP 91 began to activate, the price of Bitcoin went up a little bit, but it also could, in fact, go back down if it doesn't lock in, because apparently now it's below the 80% threshold. So you're having a real-time effect on people. At the same time, there's a lot of mainstay businesses that are dropping Bitcoin as a payment method. If they're still doing cryptocurrency, they're either switching to Litecoin or Ethereum or Dash or some other form of cryptocurrency. And so you're not having the same enthusiasm for purchasing goods and services or selling your wares and goods and services for Bitcoin as you had in the initial beginning or even a year ago, if you will. So all this does, in fact, have a human impact. So here's an article from FEED, Foundation for Economic Education. They're coming from the Austrian School of Economics. This was published this time last year, by Vik Rasidkar, and this is his position. Don't increase the block size for Bitcoin transactions. Like the Avengers, Bitcoin is in the midst of a civil war, or at least that's how the media portrays it. For those of us that are unaware, the Bitcoin protocol contains a built-in limitation. Only 1 megabyte of transaction data can be transmitted in each block of transactions, which shuttle about every 10 minutes. This block size cap was implemented by Satoshi Nakamoto himself as a means of preventing a particularly denial service attack on the network. As a huge fan of the Foundation for Economic Education, I still disagree with a recent article by Roger Ver, colloquially known as the Bitcoin Jesus, in favor of raising the block size cap. Let me preface this by saying that Roger Ver is an asset to the libertarian movement. He's a devout advocate for free markets and financial support for so many institutions that have done tremendous good. However, when it comes to the issue of the block size cap, I believe Roger has let his zeal for Bitcoin take over the world to cloud his better judgment. It's easy to understand why raising the block size has such an appeal, and why this position is covered favorably by large media outlets from NPR to the New York Times. It sounds simple and straightforward. We want more transactions on the blockchain, so let's just raise the cap, right? Thus, it feels natural that people who are opposed to raising the block size are opposed to the excessive Bitcoin. Indeed, on RPTC, a Bitcoin-devoted subreddit that Vera moderates, conspiracy rumors around the Bitcoin core developers, several of whom work for a startup called Blockstream, are actively trying to limit Bitcoin in order to force more traffic onto their private networks. Nothing could be further from the truth. Blockstream is merely a vehicle for financing the development of this technology, funding which is sorely needed prior to the blockchain creation. Every blockchain product is open source software, meaning it's just like Bitcoin. The entire world is free to examine and run what blockchain's code as they choose. Just as important, the founders of Blockstream have a deep history in the fight for internet freedom. Gregory Maxwell, formerly of Mozilla Foundation, stated, "When I worked in the Internet Engineering Task Force with other long-time developers of the protocol of the Internet, there's almost a ubiquitous regret that we built an Internet where encryption was in default and always on. I don't want to make the same mistake with money. I think that if Bitcoin was going to replace other forms of money, we need to improve privacy." Maxwell has gone beyond just talk. He invented CoinJoin and confidential transactions, two protocols that improve the privacy of Bitcoin transactions tremendously. These concepts have been implemented in other cryptocurrencies, or seeking to do so with Zcash, Dash, and Monero, particularly confidential transactions. Dr. Adam Black, meanwhile, has been involved in the CyberPunk movement for decades. Back invented Hashcash, the proof-of-work system that is the core component of Bitcoin, and no, not the blockchain. Back is one of the only 6 citations in the Satoshi's Bitcoin white paper. The notion that these individuals or their colleagues are trying to sabotage Bitcoin is preposterous, and anyone who advances the position should be discredited. As Andrew Anopoulos correctly noted, one way opponents of Bitcoin can jam the system is by trolling, sowing dissent, assuming bad faith, and throwing a lot of negativity into the conversation, which is very true, but I do think that there's some rightful criticisms to the block size debate, particularly about Blockstream, the issue about patents, which we'll talk about when we get into the Downsize segue, and the fact of scaling and how it has not successfully occurred. While they have this code out there, it has been reviewed, it hasn't been implemented, and they have not successfully either convinced the miners or pushed the code out for people to really be confident in it and want to implement it. I think they have a very significant marketing issue. I don't think they really express what it is they're doing, and also some of the positions that some of the developers have about people either going their own way or trying different things or trying a different system, if you will. Also has a bit of a negative impact. And we'll get into that as we progress on discussing this week about all the downsides of these different positions when it comes to the Bitcoin block size debate. Rather than position of why the block size cap can remain at 1 megabyte is subtle and requires a more in-depth understanding how this technology works, and more generally how successful networks are built, I'll try to explain it so below. So sex, drugs, and rock and roll. In his essay, Roger analyzed Bitcoin to Starbucks. According to him, the 1 megabyte is like limiting a Starbucks to 20 customers a day. If they did that, there would be no way Starbucks would be successful. But Bitcoin is more like a Starbucks that the government is constantly trying to shut down. It only exists because it can't be shut down. Bitcoin is a regulatory arbiter at its finest, the monetary equivalent of what BitTorrent is to the sharing of media content. When users send Bitcoin from one person to another instead of recording the transaction on a single server, like PayPal or any other bank, miners compete to bundle transactions into blocks. If the government regulates or shuts down any given mining operation, there will be others somewhere in the world willing to step up and compete for the block reward. The system thus far has created a perfect balance, with just enough decentralization to keep its independence and just enough centralization to eliminate redundancies. Consequently, operating a blockchain is expensive, very expensive. In order to record a transaction across thousands of servers, some of which may be adversarial to the network, it is much more expensive than traditional financing, where only one entity like PayPal needs to operate a server, acting as a trusted but regulated third party. The beauty of Bitcoin is that it can operate in conditions where other payment networks cannot work. When WikiLeaks is blocked by banks, when escorts can't use their credit cards to buy ads on Backpage, or when drug users want their drug du jour off the deep web, Bitcoin is there for the unserved markets that cannot exist because government regulations forbade them, which is very, very true. This is a utility or a usability of Bitcoin, but at the current fees and the way it's being shifted to where people are seeking for a payment settlement, it's not as feasible for these kind of everyday type of transactions. But again, we'll be discussing all the downsides of these plans throughout the week. Sadly, Bitcoin has been marketed for years as a free, cheap network for transactions, but this is flatly untrue. Bitcoin, as it currently stands, is a poorly designed for retail, which is why payment processors like BitPay are struggling despite millions in venture capital. Supporters of raising the Bitcoin block size bought into this narrative so deeply they believe that Bitcoin must remain cheap to use. But Bitcoin users, the unserved, don't care about fee transactions. They care about transaction freedom. You break it, you buy it. I don't believe that is true. I think what people fail to understand is, globally speaking, and this has to do with a privilege. $5 might not mean much to you, but $5 in a lot of parts of the world is everything. $5 can get you through the day. $5 can get you through a week. Even here in the privileged space of the first world, $5 can still get you pretty decently far, depending on your economic situation. If you need food, you could probably go to a 99-cent store and get some rice, some water, some type of protein, maybe like some really cheap bad meat, if you will, and something kind of breakfast type of a deal, and spend $5 and you can have a meal or set of meals for the next 3 or 4 days to get you by. That's something that $5 can do here. $5 in other parts of the world can get you by far longer than that, with far more, just because of the economics of that. And transaction fees matter. Yes, being able to transact and have that freedom is great, but in these places that people talk about, the third world, if you will, or the unbanked, the individuals that have access to Bitcoin are the elites of those spaces. They are the tech heavy, or they're already in a position of economic growth, if you will, or privilege, to be able to interact and engage in Bitcoin. And you're not really truly fundamentally reaching those who do not have the economic power to engage. They may have a smartphone, they may connect, but if they can't purchase Bitcoin, if they can't feasibly utilize it, if it doesn't have, Bitcoin in general, cryptocurrencies in general, have a significant UI problem, as well as an access problem. So UI making it very dead simple, 1, 2, 3, to engage and interact, and 2, being able to obtain it. And because of that, because of those hurdles, you're not getting to the promise of Bitcoin, where it's supposed to be this global financial transaction means of freedom. You're just not getting it, and I think people are missing that. So fees do matter. They fundamentally matter, because all you're doing is, again, you're just chipping away at people's wealth, and already they're being taxed. They're not getting paid as much. They're on a very razor thin when it comes to the monetary ability, and you're chipping it or taking away from that for what? For what? Really, fundamentally. I think what this has to do is, we'll get to that towards the end of the week, where I think fundamentally some of the fundamental thinking and flaws currently in this space, and what we need to do to rethink everything with cryptocurrency and financial stuff, might solve a number of these issues. But I'm going to table that for now. So continuing on with the article, you break it, you buy it. In their mistaken zeal to keep Bitcoin cheap, Roger Ver and his supporters are pushing policies to jeopardize the health of the network. One of the theories he outlines is that more block space leads to cheaper transactions and more usage, which means more nodes, individuals running the Bitcoin software, thereby verify the integrity of the network, and hence a more robust network. But there's little evidence that Bitcoin users are concerned about the cost of using the network. Again, these are underserved. They're coming to Bitcoin because their needs aren't met by the status quo, and they aren't swayed by high cost of transactions. Second, there's no evidence that these new users will actually run fully verified nodes. More likely, they'll run a light wallet like a Mycelium or Bread wallet that allows the users to transact, but doesn't contribute to network security. Roger Ver goes into detail how increasing the storage bandwidth and CPU power will mitigate the cost of increased blocks. Yet none of this matters. When a block of transactions are packaged by miners, they must be relayed across the network. Therefore, what matters is the race between miners to discover the next block, and well, even at the time of this article, I don't think it was 25 Bitcoin block reward is a latency. I think it's 12.5 now. How long the block takes to propagate. Moore's law, Nelson's laws, and other phenomena of advances computing network power affect all miners equally, so Roger's point is irrelevant. On the other hand, if the latency increases, which will be invariable due if we start producing 2 to 8 or 20 megabytes, the miners will begin producing more orphan blocks, i.e. blocks of transactions that are wasted because another block produced by another miner spreads across the network first. Thus, large blocks encourage miners to further centralize in order to reduce their propagating time. Seeing as centralized miners can share new blocks amongst their partners first before sending it to the entire network. Raising the block size will also require implementing a hard fork, and because the Bitcoin network requires a consensus on each block added to the blockchain, everyone must run software that adheres to the same fork parameters. Raising the block size breaks these parameters, hence everyone must upgrade at once or else be kicked off the network. Imagine if everyone in the world had to upgrade to the newest version of Windows at the exact moment it's released, or else the computer would not be able to communicate with any of those running the new version. It would be chaos. A hard fork has not been tried in Bitcoin for a very long time, and for a good reason. As the network has grown, the difficulty in pulling it off has conventionally grown. Thus, the core developers prefer a soft fork, upgrades that don't break core parameters and allow individuals to upgrade at their leisure, while still allowing them to participate. Thus, in the cautious and, in my opinion, correct approach to implementing upgrades. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Previous two sections might sound pessimistic. Like Bitcoin is only destined to be used by prostitutes, drug dealers, and scallops. Thanks to the work of forks and Bitcoin Core, these dynamics are about to change, and Bitcoin will soon transcend the blockchain. Rather than Vera Starbuck, a more appropriate analogy of why the block size should be continually raised to imagine someone being told to get from LA, Los Angeles to New York in one day. The raise the block size crowd believe in a brute force method to this problem. Speed up and drive at 200 miles per hour. But a genuine scaling solution requires better technology. Instead of driving faster, you hop on a plane. Instead of bloating the blockchain, you build the Lightning Network. Explaining in detail how the Lightning Network works is beyond the preview of this article. I highly encourage the interested parties to read Aaron Van Weerden's excellent 3-part series. I will get into the Lightning Network eventually. To make a long story short, Lightning Network is a second technology layer built on top of Bitcoin. It works kind of like a bar tab. Most bars allow you to open a tab with your credit card, buy as many beers as you want, and only settle the final amount at the end of the night. Similar in Bitcoin, you can open a payment channel with another individual, transact back and forth as many times as you like, so as long as you don't exceed the capacity of the channel, and then close the channel at the end. The only two transactions committed to the blockchain are those open and closing. Yet here's the kicker. Imagine your friend also has a tab open with the same bartender, and you pay your friend by adding to your bar tab and subtracting the equivalent amount from his. All this in an instantaneous, cryptographic, verifiable, threat-proof, private, since transactions are only known between connected parties and not seen on the blockchain, can occur across an unlimited number of bartenders, intermediaries, and avoids using the expensive, slow confirmation process of the blockchain until final settlement. Virtually anyone can act as an intermediary with little more than a residential internet connection, incentivized by collecting small fees. This isn't science fiction. There are already 3 separate teams working on the implementation right now. Raising the block size is an inferior scaling solution, expanding capacity by just a factor of 2, 8, etc., while risking decentralization. However, Lightning Network can scale to Bitcoin to thousands and millions of transactions per second and reach everyone in the world with no such trade-offs. Damn it, I'm a doctor, not a cartographer. It's important to approach Bitcoin with humility. The Bitcoin developers are experienced programmers and cartographers and are most certainly not ignorant of economics. They spent years studying every line of source code, developing new features, and understanding the economic ramifications of these changes. As much as they think you know about Bitcoin, these guys know and have considered more. You can have hour-long conversation with someone like Peter Todd or Eric Lemos on things like UTXOs, Merkle trees, block headers, and other dense topics. Telling a select group of developers on why the block size should be raised is like lecturing Tom Brady on how to throw a football. And the vast majority of them side with the core. The safe choice is to keep the block size at 1 megabyte instead of working on more advanced scaling mechanisms. Rather than kicking the can down the road, raising the block size from 1 to 2 megabytes solves nothing and simply extends the subsidies, when in reality, users should be bearing more of the cost of operating the network as the block reward halves this month. Okay, so I guess July was when the halving happened. Big blockers are in some mistakes pursue purists to keep Bitcoin transactions cheap, but cheap is not what Bitcoin real users are looking for. Yeah, we'll talk about real users again. I think we'll save my thoughts about the downsize of some of all of this discussion towards the end of the week. Critics of Viewpoint say they don't want core experts running a monetary system like the Federal Reserve Army of Economics. This comparison is disingenuous at best. The feds make quasi-economic / political decisions that affect everyone, regardless of whether or not they choose to participate. Bitcoin is a voluntary software program, and if you don't like their policies, there's no assertive altcoins you can welcome to use. As a libertarian, we believe in the markets as a way to test ideas and products, not politics. While the markets have tested Roger Ver's ideas over and over again, supporters of increasing the block size launched Bitcoin XT, which failed to gain adoption. Then one of the most prominent supporters departed Bitcoin in a whiny rage quit. They launched Bitcoin Unlimited, which also failed to gain adoption. And after that, they launched Bitcoin Classic. Actually, Bitcoin Classic became for Bitcoin Unlimited. And well, you'll guess it, it failed to gain adoption. So Roger Ver and his allies have resorted to acting like politicians, relentlessly pushing the same talking points we've heard over and over again. But when it comes to people's money, it's hard to fool them in the voting booth. Bitcoin, much as the internet itself, will be built in layers, not by recklessly increasing the strain on the blockchain. Bitcoin developers, owners, and miners know that raising the block size is a poor, blunt method of scaling, and that instead we need new layers like Lightning Network. If Roger Ver wants to scale Bitcoin so that every Starbucks in the world uses it, this is where he should focus his effort. Bitcoin will change the world, I'm sure of that. However, revolutions take decades. When it happens, the revolution will be decentralized. And he has many thanks to Chris DeRose of the Bitcoin Uncensored podcast for his technical input. So I think that sums up the position of the people that want to stay at 1 megabyte and not raise the block size at all, at this point at least. So here's a few other articles about this, about, kind of the block size, if you will. So charts determining the idea of block size for Bitcoin by CoinDesk. Wooly Woo is an entrepreneur, investor, trader, and cryptocurrency enthusiast. In his guest piece, Wu weighs in on the block size, analyzing the charts to offer a novel take on the Bitcoin's block big debate. Ultimately, he finds that there's little evidence to suggest current network congestion is a fatal flaw. Bitcoin has been operating for 8 years, from the early days when only saw a few transactions in each block, through today where blocks are cram-packed and congestion is the norm. One benefit of seeing congestion this early in Bitcoin's life is we get a set of data of the network's underload. In this study, we'll take a look at Bitcoin's transactional data to see if it points to an idea of block size, or if there's even such a thing. The chart above shows the transactions per second on the Bitcoin network over time. It is a log graph that shows exponential growth as a straight lines, where the bubbles denote the size of Bitcoin's mean pool. Think of it as a kind of a storage tank. Okay, we already know what a mean pool is. Despite users complaining that block size are now crammed full and the network overload, this graph tells a surprising story. While we see by Q4 of 2016 the mean pool swelling to take up peak loads, the network catches up off peak. The network is keeping up with the exponential. Yes, we are seeing congestion, but no, we are not yet turning away any significant transaction volume due to this congestion. If this was true, we would see this as a downwards arc on our log graph instead of our straight line. But that's not to say we aren't very close to the limit soon, and our arc away from a straight line will likely happen in the weeks and months ahead. Project demand. We can use this chart to project future transactional demand. Say by the next block halving, or reward halving in 2020, we can expect around 20 transactions per second on the network. After predicted 20 transactions per second by 2020, I will now explain why this probably won't be true. The Bitcoin network is mainly used as a store of value, but by 2020, Bitcoin's price volatility should be stable, enough for it to be used as a currency. I suspect we'll see a step change upwards as merchants start using it for general commerce. Something like the Lightning Network, which allows for nearly unlimited transactions for the cost of our 4 normal transactions, would open new use cases such as microtransactions for the IoT. The 2 takeaways are that we can use this chart for predictions, but they will only be valid as long as Bitcoin use case remains the same. For now, it's a store of value. Its future can expand greatly. A side note on quote-unquote coffee. Users of the Bitcoin network and in particular businesses tell us that fees have increased to the point where paying for coffee and other small use cases such as ad network payments are not viable anymore. The argument is that Bitcoin is losing utility for general commerce. Therefore, the Bitcoin network is at risk of declining as payments move to cheaper competing alternative cryptocurrencies. Clearly, we see the exponential growth of transactions per second has to skip the beat. This tells us that the paying for your coffee with Bitcoin use case, though much talked about, was essentially a negligible aspect of the network transactions. Otherwise, we would see a decline curve. The network is keeping up. Its core use case has always been transmitting and securing high value securely. As mentioned earlier, this will change as Bitcoin volatility becomes stable enough to be used as an everyday currency. We're currently in the phase of Bitcoin as a store of value. Bitcoin uses demand as market emerge with much higher revenue. Here's a graph of the B size article. The bubble size denotes the number of trades in the mean goes crazy whenever blocks are 95% or more filled, and confirming times just go vertical. Even for things like crazy at around 80%, the medium confirm times start to deviate upwards typically. It's important to note that the higher the fees we pay as users in the system, the more security we get as miners can afford to compete with higher hash power with more revenues. This becomes super important due to time as the block reward subsidies drop with each halving event. Currently, fees make it an important part of miners' revenue. Negative 1.5 BTC fees versus 12.5 BTC reward subsidies. At the next halving, when the subsidies drop to 6.25 BTCs, the fees component will become critical to the security of the network. Thus, there's a Goldilocks zone for fees, not too cheap for better security and not too expensive. My conclusion here is that the ideal block size to keep confirming times for Balloon will keep fees and security reasonably around 80% of the blocks being filled. Putting it all together. So we have 3 results so far. 1 megabytes currently has kept pace with the network demand so far, despite undesirable delays in transaction processing times and expensive fees during congested times. The most optimal block size to maximize miners' revenue in any size small enough to congest the network, which is around 95% filled or more. Getting congested and onset of leapfrogging keys scenario between users would be optimal miners' game to play. The transaction confirming times start to suffer when blocks are above 80% filled. At this level, fees are reasonable but not exorbitant, but not too cheap to substantially impact the security model of Bitcoin as the block reward subsidy diminishes in future years. The optimal network based solely on the economic game theory will need to balance security and miners' revenue, speed, and low cost of transaction. Given those constraints, I think the best block size would have to be a dynamic adjusting to the network transactional demands to keep it inside the sweet spot as much as possible. The goal would be to keep the blocks around 80% filled. At this time, the medium confirm time will be unaffected, yet will keep the demand-driven fees market high enough to be significant for miners and therefore the security of the network in years to come. But it was still 4 times cheaper than today's congestion-driven price. In this light, Monero's approach to dynamic block size, where the adjustment is algorithmic according to the network load, seems ideal. It would constantly be adjusting to keep the best balance between miners' revenue, security, and reasonable fees for users. And then he has an asterisk here. These considerations completely ignore technical aspects of the network which otherwise have converged at great lengths, such as the block propagating times and the Great Wall of China impacts. So that's very important. Orphaning blocks and the Great Wall of China is really kind of has an impact in the whole block size and the strength of the network of the Bitcoin protocol. And that's why many people are against raising the size of the block because of the Great Wall. But most importantly, they don't want to see an increase in orphaning of blocks. If you get too large, then miners are going to mine the same block. They're not going to get these rewards. Things are going to get really congested and double the effort, and you might see miners dipping out of the space, if you will. So here's a pretty checkpoint arguments against increasing the block size. This was a question posed in Our Bitcoin by Pile of Money. Arguments increasing the block size was answered by G1 Lias. Larger block size means is there more delay in block propagation, which means a higher orphan rate. Large mining pools, miners benefit from a higher orphan rate as they're more likely to mine on top of their own block. In the last years, a lot has been done to increase block propagation speed. It will be harder/more expensive to maintain a node, slightly by additional storage requirements, and more heavily by the extra bandwidth requirements. There's still a lot of people with the data cap, even in Western countries. Starting a node from scratch will take longer. There's also a lot of progress made in this field, but all the low-hanging fruit has been picked. There's a delay in the fee market. Some people think it's time to introduce a fee market, some do not. And it's hard to come to a consensus to what to raise the block size to. Everyone has a different ideal size in his mind. This best solution would be a mechanism that automatically adjusts the maximum block size, but so far there's no general agreement how to do that. We still have a lot of ways to safely and securely scale without increasing the block size. So things like Schrodinger's signatures. A block size increase beyond SegWit needs to be done with a hard fork. There's no agreement on how to do a hard fork and what the hard fork should include besides the block size increase and etc. Given the progress in a lot of fields, most are fine with the increase SegWit provides, but beyond that, there's no real foundation to increase it further anytime soon. And this is where we're getting the issue with the aspect of the New York agreement of SegWit 2x, where SegWit would get activated, but people are a little upset by the fact that there won't be a 2x increase, which many businesses still want to happen, as well as users and people. And this article is from Phil Tomlinson. I'm going to read this last, but it kind of talks about the whole community aspect, where it's turning off people to the Bitcoin with this whole scaling and consensus that we're not getting, that we talked about at the top of this episode. In this discussion about keeping things at 1 megabyte and not increasing the block size. And the downsides, again, as we summarized just a little while ago, it has to do with propagation into the network, the economics of running a node and the hardware, miners, things of that nature. So I have a link in the show notes to all the articles that I read and mentioned, as well as a few additional ones for additional reading. One in particular, I think is a very good one, is The State of the Bitcoin Network by Hacking Distributed by Adim Ifgesier and Amin Gansur. They are people that have been in this space for a while, and technology in general, and have been often speaking and giving their viewpoints, particularly this year, about the Bitcoin block size debate. So just basically to sum up, the downsides of increasing the block size is that it will cause less security of the Bitcoin network because miners are incapable of making a profit. You're also not able to propagate the blocks in time out to the network. They're going to do double the energy, so it's going to be double the cost when miners are both mining the same block at the same time, and thus we're getting these orphan blocks. You're also going to not have as many people, which is a consistent theory to do with the nodes. Not everyone's going to download the nodes. The block is going to get really bloated, very large, very big. You're going to have less people having these nodes, which is essential to, for verifying transactions and securing the network. You need that public ledger to prevent double spending. And also you're going to have the issue of bandwidth, where the cost of everything is just going to go up, and also finally the final point is it's not really going to lower the fees if you raise the block size. You're going to still have the same issues, and because of that position, many people are saying we need to focus on these other aspects of securing the network. Shortening signatures, Lightning Network, which are these add-on features, these second layer Bitcoin protocols that we will discuss many episodes. I'm going to push it back a little bit after discussing the Bitcoin block size debate, but those type of features. But most importantly, we need to begin with SegWit, have that occur first, and other little fixes within the Bitcoin protocol before we even begin to address raising the block size. And again, there's many people who, if they were to support an increase of the block size, they're looking towards a dynamic block size as a solution instead of a hard set one. And finally, the hard fork. When you hard fork something, everyone has to update. And the example that was given in one of the articles we read about Windows, mandating everyone upgrade to Windows in order to use it, that's not going to happen. Even to this day, as we've seen with the shadow brokers and Vault 7 and these ransomware attacks that have been happening, there's people still operating Windows XP. There's people with Windows 7. There's people with Windows 10, and they're not upgrading, updating, or keeping up with the software. Much of it is also not supported any longer by the Microsoft Office developers. So with the hard fork, everyone has to upgrade nodes, wallets, businesses, miners. So it's going to be very difficult to do so, especially now as large of a community that Bitcoin is, as much value as is generated, people have put in. To do a hard fork, you kind of almost have to be really damn sure, and you still have to have 95% of the hashing power to get that consensus, if you will. So that is it for this episode about the downsides of raising the block size at this point. Thank you for listening. Our next episode, we're going to talk specifically about those proposals, Bitcoin Unlimited, Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Classic, that talked about specifically the faults with them, not only just the aspect of raising the block size, but each of those individual proposals and why they were not adopted or put. Thank you for listening. Please rate and review either through iTunes or Stitchers or any of the podcasting apps that you're currently using to listen to this show. Thank you, and until next time.
This has been a Ferocious Shine Space Odyssey Network production.